Hello, in this video I'm going to show you some of the basics of digital processing, digital image processing in using the a few Adobe products. Right now I'm in Photoshop CS5, CS 5.5, and I'm looking right here in this window. I've got the mini bridge open. The way I did that, I went to File and I showed Browse in mini bridge, and I have a picture of this fine-looking fellow right here. I'm just going to drag it over here into Photoshop. But you think it's going to open it right in Photoshop, but it doesn't. It opens it here in Camera Raw. And in this image, I have the subject here standing or sitting in front of this purple screen, and I have a light behind this first screen, and it's you'll see a few different things going on here. Well, this program that opened up, or this application that opened up, is called Camera Raw 6.7. It knows that I took this picture on a Canon EOS Digital Rebel XS, and it gives me a graph of this right here. And in this graph, we can see that there's a lot of dark areas. Notice that, oh, that's so loud, I bet. There's a lot of dark areas there, and there's a lot of but in here in the light area, there's not a whole lot of really light colors. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start processing this. It's an okay. The exposure is okay. It's not 100%. It's not the best exposure that was ever done on a screen. So we're going to start adjusting a few things, and I'm going to start right here. That when you do the pre-processing, before you do any of the editing in Photoshop, you want to go through many of these options that are right here to be able to process this image. First, you'll notice that I have these red splotches right here. Well, that's over here in this light. What's going on there? They're not actually red splotches on the image. It's just places where there's so much light that it washed out some of the color information. And when I have this button on, it shows you what was washed out. So I'm going to come down here in Recovery, and I'm going to recover some of that information. What it does is those areas that were where we lost color information, if I move Recovery over, it changes the exposure of that area to give us back some of that color information. You'll notice that on the black side, when I clicked on black, I get this blue color. That means that those areas are underexposed, so they're really dark. So I'm going to move that over a little bit more, but I don't really mind that I don't have color information right there. So I'm just going to kind of leave it right there. I could change the exposure and move it up, and that's going to give us all that other color information, but I'm never going to get to the place where, because this was so dark, I'm never going to get that to show up. So I'm just going to put it to a place where I like it. Notice how the histogram, when I move the exposure over, the histogram up here at the top, if I move it to the right, it shifts the whole exposure of the histogram to the right. If I move it to the left, it moves that to the left. Notice when I move it to the left, we have very little light colored stuff. That's this part of the histogram. We have lots of dark. So if I move this over, it will, of course, change that exposure. Now, so this blue doesn't actually show up on the image. It's just to let me know that I'm missing color information. It's washed out because it's black. So we have a lot of blacks in there. If I turn the blacks down, it gets rid of that. Now it just makes a little more information there. Now I'm going to leave the brightness alone, but I am going to increase the contrast. I want to change the contrast a little bit, and that does some. I think that makes the picture a little bit better, changing the contrast there. There's several places in this where we can change the contrast. I'm going to move it back to where it was to start with, kind of in the middle there. And I'm going to do contrast in a different place. I'm not going to worry about clarity, but Vibrance takes colors that were kind of dull, and it makes them a little so they have more of the color in it. See, as I drag that over, it takes care of that. Saturation does the same thing, except it changes all the colors equally, adds them so they're moving closer to their primary color, or the most of that color that it can handle. So I'm going to move that over there a little bit because I like what the Vibrance does right there. Now that I've changed a few things on this on this button right here, I'm going to move it right here. And this is where I like to change contrast. Now, if you've ever worked with a curve before right here in a histogram, or, you know, this kind of, this parametric tone curve, if we move the highlights up, those are the very bright areas of the histogram right here in it. I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. Now the shadows down here, I'm going to turn down a little bit. And notice now I've changed the exposure just a little bit. And when I do this, I'm getting this kind of S curve right here. When you have a nice S, that's showing, that's how you change the contrast using this. And it really brought out that purple a little bit more. And I'm going to come back here because I think it's a little too much. I'm going to turn that vibrance down a little bit because I think it was too much. I think it was losing some of the color information there. So you can move backwards and forwards here. I think that looks pretty good. You could go to the point one and do some of the stuff too, but I like, this is a nice, convenient one to work with. Okay, sharpening. Sharpening is when you want the computer to sharpen the image. It just takes the edges of places of parts of the image, and it makes the edge a little harder. In fact, if we zoom in, I'm gonna take the zoom tool here, and I'm gonna zoom in on this area right here. Now I'm gonna grab the sharpening sharpening slider, and it's at 25. I'm gonna move it up to 75, and you're gonna see what it does. Notice how that kind of makes the grain come out more. Sometimes you really don't want any of that. You can move it less so it makes it, so it kind of smooths it out, or makes it, it's not really a blur, but that's what it is. But you can change the radius of that. Notice how if I increase the radius when I slide that over here, it ends up with almost a mosaic look on the face. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what that looks like. And sometimes you may want an effect like that. In this case, I don't. So I'm going to move this back over to 25, what I started with, and move this back down. I don't think we need that. I'm not going to worry about these other things right now. This HSL grayscale thing, HSL stands for hue, saturation, and lightness, or how much luminance, I guess. Oh, there it is right there, luminance. Hue, saturation, and luminance. So if I want to adjust the colors that are just in this red area that are in I can drag this and it'll change it. But there's not much that I have in the red here. You know, it can change some of it. It looks a little funny. But I'm going to leave that alone right there. But what I will do is I'm going to play with this purple, because you'll see this pretty pronounced how it'll change the color of this backdrop, but it won't change the color of much else. Pretty nifty, isn't it? So Photoshop, or the camera in this case, has the ability to isolate specific colors where you can change the hue of that color. I'm going to do it with the blues, with the aqua here. And notice how it, oh wait, my shirt isn't in that. Oh, I just let it know that was me. Let's use the blues. And that's how it can change the color of that shirt a little bit. The hue of that shirt, I should say. Saturation, once again, is how much of a color. It's the closest. Oh, I forget how to explain this perfectly. It's the when you think of the most of a color that you can have, that's when you have full saturation. And when I remove the saturation, it moves it towards a kind of a gray color. So notice how I moved that blue over. It removed the blue. If I move it all the way over, now I have the most blue that I can have. The trouble with moving it too far is you lose some of the color information. You lose some of the detail. So you want to find a medium. And if you want to emphasize a little more, you can slide it. But you don't want to go all out on it unless you're going for some kind of crazy effect. Notice what happens with the purple. I can make that backdrop gray just like that. And way over purple that way. So, and let's see what color is my hair. Is that kind of orange? Let's take the orange out of my hair. Oh, it does my skin also, but my lips stay. You can get some really interesting effects using this. I'm going to move over here now to this split toning. Oh, I forgot to do one more thing. The luminance. Luminance is how bright the color is. So if I take the purple and make it totally bright or dark, notice how it just changes that one. It targets that one hue and plays with it. I can make my shirt lighter and darker also, or my orangeness. I got a tan now. That's nice. All right, now I'm going to move over here. I'm not even going to bother with this because I don't want to change anything on it. Now here's a lens correction thing. I can distort what the lens was like. But notice that kind of makes a bubble thing, or I can go away, and it just changes. It mimics, it simulates what would happen if I used a different lens. I can rotate here vertically, or stretch it vertically or horizontally with these two controls. And then we can, of course, rotate it, which does what it sounds like it does. And then we can, of course, scale the image. Lens vignetting. When you use a lens, sometimes some of the light information, it gets blocked out by parts of the lens, especially when you use a telephoto lens. Sometimes it blocks the edge of it, so you ended up with some darker edges around the photo, around the outside edge of it. This mimics that sort of thing. So if I want to have kind of a dark edge around my picture, I can do it that way. That way it made it light. This way it does it dark, and then I can make it so that the edge is larger. So I have so the midpoint's moving closer to the center when I drag it that way, closer to the edge when I move it that way. However, this sometimes isn't the best way to do that vignetting. Sometimes it's better to do it with this post-crop vignetting and the next in the effects one. And so now I can do my vignetting here. I can adjust the midpoint right there, the roundness of it. I can make it more round or less round. And then I can feather the edge so that it makes it softer. Add some highlights if I want. I'd recommend playing with this if you want to. There's some other things there that I never use those, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what they are. That's all I'm going to go with for right now. By the way, you can save presets. So if you take a whole bunch of pictures and you get the look that you want with it after you do one of the pictures in a series in the same light situation, you can save the settings right here. Give it a name like my shots in the mountains on June 16th. You can just do mountains June 17th or whatever, and save it, and then you can apply it to a series of images. Now I'm going to open the image, and I'm going to end this part of the tutorial right now, and I'm going to continue on a new video.